This evening could not be possible without the collaboration between the UDC Office of Alumni Affairs and our entire National Alumni Society. So thank you, Director Fomika Murphy, and thank you, Ambassador Selvin Walton, for this evening. We would also like to thank President Mason, Executive Associate Deandra Robinson, the UDC Communications team under the leadership of Leanne Hall, UDC Archivist Chris Anglam, the University of the Student Centers team, thank you Crystal Seaborn and Charles Emerson. We would also love to recognize and welcome members of the UDC Board of Trustees, UDC executive team members, deans, faculty, staff, students, and our amazing alumni. We are also honored that we are joined this evening by several advisory neighborhood commissioners. Also, we would love to recognize Travis Mitchell, Senior Vice President and Chief Content Officer of the Maryland Public Television, for being here this evening. Lastly, we would love to recognize alumni Michael Marshall, Design Director and Principal at Michael Marshall Design, the lead designer and architect for our Student Center that we're in tonight. At this time, it is a pleasure now for me to introduce our moderator for the evening. With breaking headlines on higher education, transportation, and data centers, Hannah Denham holds the attention of readers across the greater Washington, D.C. region. Hannah is a reporter at the Washington Business Journal, the leading source for business news and data for the Washington, D.C. region. Much of Hannah's reporting focuses on themes of workforce development, skills training, and the local talent pipeline in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area where she lives. She previously covered national breaking news at the Washington Post, as well as the business news at the Tampa Bay Times. Her work has been recognized through awards from the Society for Advancing Business Editing and Writing, the Society for Professional Journalism, and the Virginia Press Association. Hannah grew up in Alabama, as she is a graduate of the Washington and Lee University, where she completed her bachelor's degree in journalism. Please help us welcome Hannah to the stage. Thank you, Hannah, for your work highlighting higher education in the region. Guests, we want your input. Our strategic planning consultant, Link Strategies, are also here, and we will provide advice to you later on this evening how you can provide your input to them for our upcoming strategic planning survey. Next, our current Undergraduate Student Government Association president will help open the discussion and interview. Brent Thigpen is a student ambassador, a Thurgood Marshall College Fund ambassador, an engineering program ambassador, and a former Mr. Freshman here at the University of the District of Columbia. Please welcome Brent to the podium, and thank you again. Enjoy your evening. Bear with me now, first speech.
Good evening. Good evening. What's the word?
Firebird.
What's the word?
Firebird.
All right, good. My name is Brent Thigpen. I am proud to be your undergrad student government president for the 2022 to 2023 school year. Actually, as a Maryland native, I am proud to be your undergrad student government president at our 17th ranked HBCU. Once again, 17th HBCU. This year, I literally took flight as a mechanical engineering major. I spent the summer interning in Washington State at Boeing. As a system stress intern, I was honored to represent Firebird Nation with student interns from around the country. As an intern at Boeing, I also worked on the new Air Force One by developing and checking current system stress systems on the plane. My dream when I graduate in 2024 is ultimately become a pilot. UDC is preparing me academically for my future. Now, enough about me. Now, on behalf of all our UDC student leaders, I am proud to introduce our university president this evening. Ronald J. Mason is the 9th president of the University of the District of Columbia. Under his leadership, the university began a multi-million-dollar capital renovation and expansion program. Spending on research has almost tripled. The Center for Diversity, Inclusion, and Multicultural Affairs was created. 2 new PhD programs were inducted and launched. UDC secured the largest private donation in our history, $2.3 million for need-based scholarships. Prior to his appointment at UDC, President Mason served a 5-year term as Chief Executive Officer of Southern University and A&M College System, and spent 10 years as President of Jackson State University. Before that, President Mason was the Senior Vice President, General Counsel, and VP Vice President for Finance and Operations at Tulane University. He also served as the founder and executive director of the National Center for the Urban Community at Tulane and Xavier Universities. President Mason is the recipient of numerous recognitions, including Southern Christian Leadership Conference Award for Educational Leadership, the Benjamin E. Myers Educator of the Year, Columbia University's John Jay Award for Distinguished Professional Achievement, Thurgood Marshall College Fund Educator of the Year, and the City of New Orleans Medal of Honor. Finally, President Mason is a mentor and supporter to other student leaders and me. Please join me in welcoming President Mason to the stage.
Testing.
Yeah, it's on. Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm privileged and thrilled to be a part of this evening. Thank you for the warm introduction and honored to be here at this campus with you. Welcome, President
Thank
Mason.
you and welcome.
I'd love to introduce what we're going to speak about tonight, and then sort of set the plans here. So the University of the District of Columbia has a history that stretches back to 1851. At almost 175 years of existence, there has been tremendous progress, but not without passionate leaders navigating numerous challenges throughout UDC's history. As the only public HBCU in the District of Columbia, UDC deserves recognition for the innovative things that the institution did to support students before and during this health pandemic. Most recently, UDC was ranked number 17 among all HBCUs in the U.S. by U.S. News and World Report. It's an honor to be here with you today, President Mason. We have a great audience here in the room, including UDC alumni, current students, faculty, and other members of Fire Coordination. Before we jump into the discussion, I'd love to cover some ground rules for this evening. I have a couple questions that the planning team has put together. For our friends in the audience, you can also participate this evening by writing your questions down on the note cards that were placed on your chairs. If you need an extra note card, the UDC alumni team in the room can help. We're looking forward to hearing President Mason's responses. I will do my best to get us through most of the questions on this list. And tonight we have 3 categories of questions: UDC's role in public education in DC, UDC's strategic plan, and the future of UDC. So President Mason, if you're ready, let us jump in.
I'm ready. Let me say some thank yous first, if you don't mind. That is to Bernard and to Selvin who put this together. Great alumni, great supporters of the university. Fo wasn't mentioned earlier, but I want to mention her now, Director of Alumni Affairs. I have 2 trustees here, Trustee Shelton and Trustee Scott. Raise your hands. And 3, I'm sorry. Dr. Musgrove. Sorry, Dr. Musgrove. She's new on the board. Anyway, raise your hand so people know who you are. Thank you for being here, and thank you all for coming. I'm ready to go.
Wonderful. All right, number one. How would you describe UDC's history and role in defining the educational landscape in DC?
So the answer I would have given a month ago was that our roots go back to Minor School for Colored Girls, which merged with the DC, Wilson School for White Girls that became DC Teachers College, which merged with Washington Technical Institute, which merged with Federal City College, and that became the University of the District of Columbia. And we're not only the only public HBCU in the District of Columbia, but we're also the only public university in the District of Columbia, which means that we are the state higher education system for the District of Columbia. We do workforce training, we have a community college, and we go bachelor's up through a PhD and a law degree. So we cover the gamut of public higher education. But we're also the pinnacle of public education, period, in the District of Columbia. Because 60% of our students come directly out of DC public schools. But what I recently learned was this, and this is a big deal, I think. In his first State of the Union address, George Washington said that there were two keys to the success of the future of democracy, the new democracy they were starting. One was the military academy, West Point, and the other was a public university in the nation's capital, which became the University of the District of Columbia. And I thought about it. There are two Americas. There's the America that we live, which is conquest and capitalism, right? And that's really what West Point is all about. But then there's the idea of America, the dream that all people are created equal and that we're a land of many lands and a people of many peoples. And that's really what the role of the public university in the nation's capital is, to make sure that the dream is protected and that we train students who understand what that dream is and then fight for it over time. And I think that's the real importance of the public institution of higher learning in and for the nation's capital.
Absolutely, thank you. So what are the clear personas or factors that distinguish UDC students and alumni?
Well, we have a long history. We have a lot of alumni. We could count over 40,000, depending on who you talk to, 50,000 alumni in and around the world. Most of our alumni come from the district, and so we have alumni who are involved in things all over the district, government as well as the private sector. Our law school is the original Antioch Law School, which is committed to public service. And so we have law graduates, one of whom is here, Natasha, I don't know where she went, who represent people who need representation but can't afford high-priced lawyers in the district. And we have engineers, we have criminal justice workers, we have students.
Over the last few years.
I think that we trace our roots back to 1851, but we actually became the University of the District of Columbia when the district got home rule, which was 1976, right? And so, as an institution, we're only about 40 years old. And you mentioned the U.S. News and World Report ranking, which was 17, that is the top 20 in the entire country. But 3 years ago, we weren't on the list at all. And I think the moral of the story for UDC and that UDC alumni should understand is that as an institution, we really are just getting started. We've had a lot of growing pains. We had to get through cuts from the control board. They tried to shut down the school and move it from its current site here on Van Ness campus. Tried to replace it with a community college system. But to the credit of UDC and its alumni, they fought all of that back, and they're still here with the potential to be what I think is the goal of the strategic plan, which is a model institution of higher learning in and for the country. And so while we've gone from 0 to 17 on that list, my expectation is that eventually we'll be number one. And you know, I think when you're affordable, when you have high quality programs, all of which have the highest levels of accreditation, and when you're in the nation's capital, I think that's a goal that is realistic and can be reached within the lifetime of many of the students who are graduating, that are sitting here today and will graduate in the near future.
So what partnerships will sustain UDC's legacy in education into the distant future?
Well, the biggest partnership is with the District of Columbia, because we are the district and the district is us. You know, and the interesting thing about the district, I mentioned the control board, is that when the control board came through and really drastically cut all of the district's budgets across the board, and then reset the future of the district, right? And then they brought back the public school system and facilities, they brought back park and recreation, they brought back the libraries, all of which are world-class now. The odd thing is that the last thing on the list to bring back was the public institution, the university. And the university is the linchpin for everything else that they're trying to make sure, you know, is sustained over time. Because the district wants to be a resilient, sustainable, and equitable community. But it can't be any of that without a strong public university. And so, you know, I think that, what was your question again?
Partnerships.
Partnerships, right. So the first partnership is with the district. And I think that is a growing partnership that is strengthening over time, because I think they get it now, right? The second is the business community. And I think those are being strengthened now because, you know, we've had in the first 40 years something like 20 presidents and interim presidents. So stability was an issue, you know, consistency of conversation. But I think people are starting to believe now that the university is here and is able to do the business of a university. But ultimately, the biggest partnership is with the alumni. Because, you know, the alumni are the heart and soul and heartbeat of the institution. As they go, so go the institution. And I'm very proud to say that, you know, that organization is strengthening, it's growing, it's getting to be much more organized, and you can tell from this fireside chat that they know how to handle their business and handle it well. And I'm looking at Trustee Scott here, and he'll tell you that one of the things they're spearheading is the Eb Henderson Initiative, because Eb Henderson is the grandfather of black basketball, and of course there wouldn't be basketball at all if it wasn't for black basketball, right? At least not in the NBA. And so he's an alum of UDC, and the alumni have taken on that initiative and claimed it for our own. So a lot going on there, but I think over the long run, yes, the district, yes, the business community, but the key to all of that is our working relationship with our own graduates who are our alumni.
Okay. Great, thank you. So now on to the strategic plan.
Are y'all enjoying this? Is it interesting? Okay, good. Strategic plan, yes, go ahead, yes.
So for alumni who are still curious or not familiar, can you explain to us what the equity imperative is?
Yeah, so in around 2017, the mayor said that education was one of the 5 key ingredients to build pathways to the middle class in the district. And we noted that in the district, I'm going to give you rough numbers now. If you had a high school degree, you made something like $30,000, $35,000 a year. But if you had a bachelor's degree, you'd make $70,000 a year. And so you couldn't even think about getting on the pathway to the middle class unless you had a bachelor's degree. And as the only public university in the district, we realized that it was imperative for us to infuse the equity component into the vision of a resilient, sustainable, equitable university. And so we spent about a year talking to alumni, talking to ANCs, talking to civic organizations to understand what they required of their university. And that resulted in the board approving in 2018 a strategic plan called the Equity Imperative. And the vision of the Equity Imperative is that every student that walks through our door will reach their highest level of human potential. And we said human potential because it's more than just professional potential. It means to be able to be the best human being that you can be. And so that is a key component and a key vision of the equity imperative, but also to be a model of urban student success. And so if you look at what the equity imperative is designed to do, is to create these multi-credential, seamless pathways that start at workforce certification, that connect to associate's degrees, that connect to bachelor's degrees, with multiple credentials and multiple on and off ramps, so that any student, no matter what their station in life is, can get on, go as far as their potential is at that time, get off and go to work or whatever needs to happen in their life, but also get back on when they're ready, as if they never left. And so, and which is, I think, going to be the future of higher education in general. But for us, we've had students that have started in workforce certification and ended up getting a bachelor's degree. And I think at the end of the day, that's going to be what is going to distinguish us from the rest of higher education. Okay?
Great.
Good.
Thank you.
That's why it's called the equity imperative.
Can you tell us some of the success stories of the equity imperative?
Yeah, so I'm going to give the audience a little preview. I'm doing a convocation speech tomorrow, right? And I went back and looked at the one I did in 2015, which had a long list of issues that we had to deal with, right? But then, because it's hard for us to understand where we are and where we can go unless we understand really how far we've come in the last 7 years. And so, you know, it was a long list of things that we've been able to do. You know, I'm not going to remember them all now because it was that long a list, but you mentioned the placement in U.S. News and World Report, plus the law school tied Yale for number 5 in the country in clinical programs, plus AffordableSchools.net ranked our business school number 1, our mechanical engineering program number 1, and our engineering school number 7 in the country. And this is affordability and quality, which is, I think, important. Our graduation rate was 16% in 2015. It's 25% now. But that's our open enrollment graduation rate, which is above average for open enrollment schools, right? But if you separate out our bachelor's graduation rate, it's actually 44% now. Which is close to the national average. So our bachelor's graduation rate has gone up significantly. We had a goal to hit 4,000 students. We actually hit it before COVID, and then COVID, you know, hit us on the enrollment side. But even that's starting to creep back up now. We had lost our nursing program accreditation. We've gotten it back, and now people are knocking down the doors to get in the program. Same thing with mortuary science. All of our programs are accredited at the highest level. Our campus here is the original Washington Technical Institute campus, but now we have funds to renovate it. We just bought a new facility on Connecticut Avenue. We have a new facility for our workforce programs, and we're going to build a new facility for our community college down at Fort Totten. And so it's a long list, and I'm not going to remember them all, but see where we were, see where we are, and this is in 7 years. That's why I said within 10 years, there's no doubt in my mind we can be the number 1 HBCU in the country.
That's right. Wonderful, thank you. So what's still left to be done? What's the next phase of the strategic plan?
So you mentioned that we are in the process of updating the current equity imperative strategic plan. The board had a retreat, I guess about a year ago now, and said, look, yeah, we need to tweak it, but we don't need to throw it out the window. And so we're in the process now working with Link Consulting to find out what we need to find out in order to go to the next phase. And there's a what is it, a bar Q or Q code?
QR.
QR code that you can access, and everybody should go do the survey because we need you to give your input so that we can know exactly where to go on the next phase. This year, we need to lock down the plans for the renovation and construction work that we have to do. Our big initiative is going to be to try to get the district to give us money to get our salaries right. Because we live in a highly competitive market and our salaries are not what they should be to be able to compete. And so that's going to be our #1 priority. We're going to have to transition off of federal funds, which have been supporting our students. But the students need the support, and so now we're going to have to figure out a way to replace those funds. And that's this year. But then over the long run, I think the path laid out by the equity imperative, is still a work in progress. It needs to be tweaked, but these seamless pathways have to be completed in many places. I think that we still have to firm up our relationships with the business community, and we have to be able to raise funds and get some national recognition for the important work that we're doing for the nation. And then we have an initiative out in Ward 8, which is based on the premise that, it's a lab project for us, but it's based on the premise that America is really a rigged competition, and that part of the problem with public education is that in a rigged competition, you really have to eliminate a lot of the competition before it's able to compete. And so we're trying to rethink public education to recognize how the riggedness in the competition in the system is getting in the way of students at a school in Anacostia, getting in their way of reaching their highest levels of human potential. And I think that's a national initiative that's starting to get attention, and it's something that we need to make sure we shore up and strengthen. Okay? That's Dawn, D-A-W-N.
So how can alumni get involved in the future planning?
Well, they are involved. We have a pretty good communication network now. We can arrange if the alumni leadership want to have a session, but I think, in fact, I'm sure that they are already involved on the working groups for the planning process. One of them is waving cards about how to do the surveys. We want people to get involved and get their voice in the conversation about the future of the institution, because at the end of the day, I kind of just work here, but it is the institution for the people of the district. And so we need to get that straight. And of course, money. You'd be amazed how many $1 contributions can make a difference. And we don't have a lot of wealth in our alumni base. We have some, but not big wealth, because that's not the way America's set up, right? But everybody can do a little bit, a little something, and a little something from a lot of people adds up to a big difference. And so we want them to get involved in that way as well.
Great. And speaking of the future, think about UDC students in 10 years sitting here with us now. What are they seeing, and what would they be most excited about regarding the university at that point?
So our job is to make sure that the value of their degree increases over time, right? And I'm pretty sure, especially based on the federal report card salaries that our students are making, right? We're in the top tier of upward mobility. That is the difference between a student's salary and their parent's salary. Now, a lot of that has to do with where the parents' salaries are, but also its value added from a UDC education. And so I'm pretty clear that the value of a UDC degree today is more than it was 5 years ago, and I'm positive that it will be more than it is now 5 years from now and 10 years from now. And that's a good thing, because the value of the degree should continue to increase over time. Plus, they'll see a brand new Van Ness campus, They'll see a spanking brand new community college campus. They'll see programs that articulate from workforce all the way up through to bachelor's degree. Will probably be a Research 2 institution by then. And we'll probably have more student housing by then as well, which I think is something that everybody's going to be happy about. We might even get Mike to design it when we get the money to do it. You're ready. I also think that this idea that we are the only exclusively urban land-grant university in the country is going to become of growing importance, because in 10 years, about 80% of the world is going to be living in urban areas. And there are going to be a lot of people in very small spaces with problems that we are trying to figure out now before they get to be problems 10 years from now. And so I think we're going to have a real leadership position in that space. And I think it's going to be another thing that's going to distinguish us from the rest of higher education. And so, you know, a student that is an alumni 10 years from now is going to have their chest puffed out. They're going to be giving a lot of money back to the school because they're so proud of it. They're going to be sending their children here because it's going to be the best HBCU in America. And I'll say this, we claim our HBCU-ness, but there's no reason you can't be best and black at the same time. And so we're not only going to be the best HBCU, but we're going to be among the best universities in America.
That's right.
I talked about you earlier, Natasha, just so you know. That's the lawyer I was talking about.
Absolutely. So how would you put a bow on your last 8 years at the university? Where did your legacy sit?
So I'm not gonna do a spoiler on what I'm gonna say tomorrow. But I will say this: I don't think it's time for a bow, right? Because I don't think the work is done yet. You know, you do what you do with the time you have to do it, and I think we did the best we could with what we had to work with, right? You know, there's so much untapped potential. To me, it would be premature to start claiming victory. I think we can claim accomplishments, but I don't think we can claim victory yet. Because, you know, the vision is there, the potential is there, but it's not yet achieved. And so, you know, I think I'd just be satisfied with somebody saying, thank you for a job well done, and we're going to pick it up from here and make sure that the job gets done.
4 more years.
4 more years.
So now it's time for some questions
From
from
the
the
audience.
Great. Thank you all for sending some in. So this is related to our previous question. How would you want students to remember you?
You know, they kind of treat me like I'm the grandfather anyway, you know. And I'm fine with that. You know, I've been dad, I've been granddad, I've been uncle. And I'll tell you something my daughter told me that really was part of my consideration in passing the baton. I was talking to her and I said, you know, Nia, she's a faculty member down at Xavier, right? And don't tell my sons this, but she's my favorite child. And I was telling her, I said, you know, Nia, I'm at the age now and I've made enough mistakes where I can actually sit down and just give people advice, you know. And the younger folks come in my office and I pontificate and I tell them how wise I am and that sort of stuff. And she said, Dad, you know, that's the problem with you baby boomers. You know a lot and you can teach a lot, but you're clogging up the pipeline for people that want your job. So you need to get out of the way. And so, you know, that was one of the considerations, right? Sometimes you got to make room for the next one in line. But you know, I think what I hope they remember most about me is that they could email me about anything at any time with what they needed to get done. And I read all my emails, and even now I'm doing half-hour sessions with anybody that wants to sit with the president, and half of them are students, right? And some of them just come to see what the president's office looks like, because most students never, I went to school, I never even saw the president, you know? And so I guess what I want them to remember is that I wasn't always a president, and that when I was their age, I was them, right? And, you know, there's nothing to stop them from being I don't wish it on you, but there's nothing to stop y'all from being a president if you want to be one. But whatever your dream is, it doesn't matter where you start. It's a question of whether you, show up every day, and if you show up, the likelihood is you're going to get where you want to go.
So the next question is, anything we can do to speed up student housing?
Yes, as a matter of, this is a student question, is it a student question? Well, anybody's question. Here's the thing. Right now, we're doing everything we can think of. Even at the best case scenario, I'm looking at probably 3 years from now, okay? But students' voices, especially alumni voices, especially during the budget process, makes a big difference. And so we're going to make a run at the salaries, and we'll get the right people to testify on that. But it might not be a bad idea for some of the students to come and talk about what a different student housing would make. And so we might be recruiting 1 or 2 of you all to come and test. How many people live in housing now here? Raise your hand. So not that many. How many would if we had housing? Gotcha. Okay, so we may have to put together a little more aggressive strategy. But I think even with that, it'll probably be 3 years before we get more student housing on campus, unless we find some apartments to rent and release, and we're looking at that as well.
This final one is more of a statement than a question, but it says, I will make George Washington's dream for democracy come true by graduating UDC as he would have wanted in his quote, 2 choices, military academy or a university of education in the nation's capital. I will help in the effort to make UDC #1 HBCU in the nation.
Good. Thank you.
Oh, one more. You have announced that you will step down in 2023 as president. What kind of president would you like to follow in your footsteps?
You know, I joke about it. And my joke is that I hope it'll be the 2nd best HBCU president of America, right? Maybe, of course. My second joke is that if it was me at 47 years old, I think that would be good too, right? But in all seriousness, I think the talent out there today is better, right? I just think these young people know more than I knew when I was their age, and they understand how this world works better than I understand it, right? The only challenge is that they don't know what they don't know. And so if we could find somebody very talented and that was open to and confident enough to ask questions when they didn't know, I think that would be a good thing. Somebody that is highly talented, highly energetic, very, likable and able to communicate well, but that was also willing to listen and had enough confidence to stop and listen when they needed to. That's the kind of president I think.
Well, President Mason, thank you so much for chatting with us today, and thank you all for being here. We really appreciate your time.
Pleasure's all mine. That was the fastest hour I've ever spent.
So at this time, I'd like to thank you all for attending the event, and I'd like to give a special token of our appreciation to Hannah. Big round of applause. And let's also celebrate our president, Ronald Mason.
Oh, yeah.
that started. I love you, Selvin. Please stop by the alumni tables on your way out and stop by the link strategy table for information about submitting your feedback regarding the future of UDC. Thank you all. God bless. Have a wonderful evening.